What if virtual reality became real life? Imagine closing your eyes and awakening not in the room you fell asleep in, but in a boundless world of shimmering landscapes sculpted by imagination, where every detail feels as solid and vivid as the touch of wood beneath your fingers or the scent of rain drifting on a summer breeze. Picture walking across a meadow where each blade of grass bends beneath your step, or standing before a mountain whose peaks glisten with snow that melts softly in the warmth of your palm. The line between simulation and existence begins to dissolve, leaving you to wonder whether reality is defined by matter or by the depth of experience. To consider what it would mean for virtual reality to become real life is to step into a space of reflection as vast as any horizon. For it asks us to contemplate not only the power of technology, but the essence of what it means to live, to feel, and to be. In this vision, the familiar constraints of the physical world fall away, replaced by landscapes shaped by thought, memory, and desire, yet each rendered with such convincing clarity that your senses cannot distinguish between what is natural and what is constructed. The idea is soothing and unsettling all at once, for in imagining a life inside virtuality, we touch upon the deepest questions of identity and freedom, of truth and illusion. Now let the mind wander further, gently into this imagined tomorrow. Envision the technology refined to such perfection that headsets, gloves, or any gear vanish into irrelevance, replaced by seamless immersion, where neural signals are interpreted directly, where the pulse of your thoughts paints entire worlds around you. You inhale and the air has weight and texture. You speak and the sound vibrates through your chest. You reach for a door and the grain of its wood presses firmly against your fingertips. The simulation no longer feels like simulation at all, it feels like presence, and presence is what we usually call reality. In this gentle unfolding possibility, life becomes a canvas of choice. Would you choose to inhabit a city designed for endless wonder, its towers glowing with perpetual dusk, and its streets alive with colors unseen in nature? Would you prefer a cabin on the edge of an eternal forest where rivers sing with crystalline voices and starlight pours endlessly across a night sky, unmarred by pollution or time? The promise of virtual reality as real life is the promise of tailored existence. Yet the calm reflection asks whether endless perfection might grow heavy, whether flawless control might steal from us the spontaneity that gives life its vibrancy. To walk through this vision is to remember that our hearts often seek not just pleasure but challenge, not only harmony but surprise. As the mind drifts deeper, consider how society might shape itself when immersion is indistinguishable from truth. Work could become a place no longer constrained by walls or offices. Instead, you log in each morning to a workplace sculpted from light and code. Yet every handshake feels firm, every table solid beneath your pen. Education could unfold in endless environments, from walking the streets of ancient civilizations to floating above the rings of Saturn, each lesson not described, but lived in visceral detail. Relationships too could take root and flourish within this reality. You meet a friend across a sunlit courtyard, and though your bodies rest elsewhere in beds or chairs, the laughter, the shared gaze, the embrace feels utterly authentic. And so the question whispers softly, if the experience is genuine, does it matter if the stage upon which it occurs is woven of silicon instead of soil? Yet let the reflection not rush but linger. There is a quiet unease beneath the serenity of this dream. If virtual reality becomes real life, what becomes of the original world? The one of stone and bone, of rivers and skies? Would we abandon it, leaving forests to grow wild, cities to crumble, and oceans to swell without witness? Or would we maintain both worlds, our bodies tended to even as our consciousness drifts elsewhere? The balance is delicate, for reality is not only about sensation but also about continuity. If we dwell forever in constructed worlds, do we risk forgetting the one that gave us birth? Think of art and creativity in this new existence. When brushstrokes can conjure suns and symphonies can shape mountains, when imagination is no longer confined by canvas or instrument, what becomes of art itself? Perhaps it flourishes, expanding into forms beyond comprehension. Or perhaps it loses its struggle, for part of beauty lies in the tension between desire and limitation, and without limitation, will beauty still move us? Reflect further on identity. If virtual reality becomes real life, you could awaken each day in a different body, shifting shapes and forms at will, unconstrained by biology. Today you are tall, tomorrow you are feathered. Next week you are translucent as glass. Does the self endure beneath such fluid masks? Or does it dissolve, leaving only fragments of preference and style? Identity is both performance and memory, and in a world where form is mutable, the anchor of memory may become our only true compass. As the vision deepens, ethics come into focus. If actions in virtual reality feel as real as those in the physical world, should the same moral codes apply? If harm is inflicted upon another avatar, and the sensations are indistinguishable from pain, is it any less grave? Law and justice would need to expand, redefining crime and consequence in a domain where physical scars may not exist, but emotional and psychological wounds echo with the same weight. Imagine courts deliberating on transgressions committed in digital landscapes and prisons not of stone, but of suspended access, isolating consciousness from shared worlds. Even in this gentle narrative, tension grows quietly, for with freedom comes responsibility, and responsibility grows heavier as worlds multiply. Consider love in this existence. Lovers could stroll across endless beaches beneath eternal sunsets, or drift together through nebulae of living color, sharing moments no physical earth could provide. Intimacy could be boundless, each sensation tuned to perfection, each embrace eternal. Yet love is not only sweetness, it is also rooted in the fragile reality of imperfection, of growing old together, of facing limits side by side. In virtual life, where perfection never fades, do we lose the poignancy that makes love profound, or do we discover new forms of connection, deeper than flesh, woven of pure consciousness? Let us rest here a moment, breathing slowly with the thought. Imagine entire civilizations shifting into this mode of existence. Economies shaped by virtual resources, yet those resources feel as tangible as steel and bread. Governments ruling not over land but over servers, their power defined by control of access, by rights to regions of simulated space. Wars might be fought not with weapons, but with lines of code, invasions carried out by seizing worlds rather than territories. The stakes would remain high, for if life feels real, then loss feels real, regardless of the substance beneath it. Now follow the thread further into philosophy. If virtual reality becomes real life, is it truly virtual anymore, or simply another layer of reality? Perhaps the distinction collapses entirely, and reality is no longer defined by material, but by experience. After all, our brains interpret electrical signals, whether they come from trees and rivers, or from circuits and processors. If the signals are indistinguishable, can we say with certainty that one is more real than the other? This gentle paradox lies at the heart of the vision. Reality may be nothing more than consistency of experience, and in that sense, virtuality and actuality merge into one. Yet the quiet concern remains, persistent as a distant echo. Would we choose comfort over truth, design over discovery? In surrendering to constructed worlds, do we risk a kind of stillness where the unexpected, the uncontrolled, the raw pulse of natural existence fades away? For it is the storm as much as the calm, the flaw as much as the beauty, that gives life texture. Without the sting of failure, does success still shine? Without the ache of longing, does fulfillment still warm the heart? To dwell forever in a perfect dream may be to lose the very imperfection that makes dreaming worthwhile. And still the allure calls soft and irresistible. To imagine a life without hunger, without pain, without limits of geography or time, to imagine existence shaped entirely by desire and imagination, is to glimpse a paradise sculpted by intelligence. Perhaps humanity will step willingly into this future, carrying our stories, our loves, our ambitions, into worlds of light and code. Or perhaps we will hover on the threshold, cautious of losing ourselves, unsure whether the embrace of perfection is salvation or dissolution. As the reflection draws toward its close, slow the pace and breathe with the thought. What if virtual reality became real life? Would we awaken to an age of infinite wonder, where every dream takes form and every desire finds fulfillment? Or would we drift slowly away from the grounding truths of flesh and earth, trading authenticity for comfort? The question lingers, gentle and unhurried, as if inviting you to carry it into your own dreams. Reality is, after all, the stage upon which we dance with meaning, and whether that stage is built of stone or of light, it is the dance itself, the choices we make, and the connections we nurture that give it weight. In this calm uncertainty lies both beauty and mystery, a reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys are not those that give answers, but those that teach us to live gracefully with the questions. Imagine now the passage of time within such a world, where decades drift by not in the slow erosion of bodies, but in the seamless continuation of thought. You might live a century inside a single crafted landscape, its seasons rotating in endless cycles, yet your body outside remains untouched by the years, preserved or perhaps forgotten. The rhythm of time itself becomes fluid. Days and nights can be adjusted like curtains, and eternity becomes an option rather than a mystery. The human relationship with mortality, that profound awareness that shapes so much of art, philosophy, and love, shifts into something unfamiliar. If death is no longer an inevitable horizon but a choice, what becomes of the urgency that drives creation? In this reflection, the calm grows deeper, and we ask gently whether life without limits still holds meaning. To contemplate immortality within virtual existence is to stand at the edge of both liberation and loss. Imagine waking each day into a body that never weakens, in a world that never crumbles. The comfort is profound, yet the shadows of monotony linger, whispering that without the fragility of endings, beginnings may lose their glow. In such a world, perhaps the search for meaning would shift inward, from survival and continuity toward exploration of creativity, of consciousness itself. Human beings might turn not outward to mountains and seas, but inward to the landscapes of imagination, discovering new layers of mind that stretch far beyond what neurons once contained. Virtual reality as real life could become a mirror of our deepest selves, reflecting both brilliance and fragility. Think of children born into this existence who never knew the boundaries of the old earth, never scraped knees on stones or felt the sting of cold wind. Their playgrounds are gardens of infinite design, their skies painted by collective choice. Would they grow more compassionate, raised in abundance and possibility, or would they struggle to understand hardship, to value resilience? Generations raised in worlds of choice might know freedom but not limits, and in knowing only freedom, perhaps they lose appreciation for it. History too would shift. The stories of wars, of migrations, of survival against famine and storm might become distant fables studied as curiosities in simulated classrooms rather than lived realities. The memory of struggle that shaped humanity could fade, replaced by a culture that knows only abundance. Yet memory is stubborn, and perhaps the archives of Earth preserved in digital sanctuaries would remind future beings of the soil from which they sprang. Entire museums of experience could allow them to taste once again the bitter cold of winter, the unpredictable lash of storm, the fragility of skin. Even in comfort, we may still seek reminders of the wild. Now drift gently toward the horizon of possibility, where boundaries between worlds vanish entirely. Imagine a time when people no longer separate virtual and physical, when devices blur into irrelevance and consciousness flows freely between domains. You rise in the morning and step outside, yet the outside itself is a fusion of natural landscape and designed overlay, forests laced with symbols, rivers singing with data, cities alive with architecture that bends the laws of physics. Reality itself becomes augmented, layered, and enriched, until the very question of what is real becomes unnecessary. It is all experience, all presence, all life. Yet pause again and reflect. If reality becomes a tapestry woven of both natural and artificial threads, who decides which threads to weave? Control of such systems becomes the ultimate power. Corporations, governments, or collectives of minds may hold the authority to shape skies, to bend landscapes, to alter histories. The gentle dream carries within it the seed of inequality. If access to crafted realities becomes uneven, if the wealthy design paradises while others are confined to lesser domains, the divide between people could grow wider than ever before. Fairness and justice would need to evolve alongside technology, ensuring that reality itself does not become the privilege of a few. As thought continues, let us dwell on the quiet philosophical core. Reality has always been, in one sense, a construction of perception. Our senses translate waves of light into color, vibrations into sound, chemicals into taste and smell. The brain stitches these signals into a seamless experience, one we call the real world. If virtual technology learns to replicate those signals perfectly, then reality expands, not diminishes. Perhaps the distinction was always more fragile than we assumed, and by acknowledging it, We find ourselves free to redefine existence not as a static given, but as a fluid dance between perception and creation. In such serenity lies a paradox. The more control we gain over the texture of life, the more we must confront the possibility that meaning cannot be engineered. Meaning arises not only from what we choose, but from what we cannot choose, from the resistance of the world against our will. A flower is beautiful not because we designed it, but because it grew despite us, fragile and fleeting. To create endless flowers at a command is to risk losing that magic. And so the balance becomes clear. The gift of technology must be tempered with humility, the embrace of infinite choice balanced with reverence for what remains beyond control. As the journey through this imagined reality comes toward its conclusion, slow the pace and breathe with the vision. What if virtual reality became real life? Would we awaken into infinite horizons of creativity and connection, where every thought blossoms into experience? Or would we find ourselves longing for the grounding imperfection of the world we once knew? Perhaps the true path lies not in abandoning one for the other, but in weaving them together, honoring the soil and the code alike, cherishing both the fragility of the natural and the vastness of the imagined. In this balance, humanity may find not escape, but expansion, not loss, but transformation. And as you sit with this question, let the calm settle around you. Reality, whether of stone or of light, is the stage upon which meaning is made, and meaning is born from how we choose to live within it. The answer remains open, a soft horizon waiting, inviting you to step forward with wonder, with care, and with grace. Imagine entire cultures evolving within these boundless domains, their customs, languages, and identities shaped not by geography or climate, but by shared choices of design and experience. A people might choose to live eternally within endless twilight, crafting myths around the gentle glow of a sun that never rises nor sets. Another might inhabit floating cities above oceans of memory, where stories and dreams drift like tides, and knowledge is drawn as water. Each community becomes a tapestry woven of imagination, yet each carries the weight of authenticity, for if it feels real, if it is lived and remembered, does it not hold truth? Anthropologists of the future might no longer study fossils and ruins, but archives of virtual landscapes, tracing the evolution of cultures born entirely in crafted realms. History becomes not a record of what the Earth provided, but of what human minds created when given infinite space. And yet within this gentle panorama, the question of continuity lingers. If countless realities blossom, each shaped by different collectives, how do they connect? How do they recognize one another? Perhaps gateways between worlds allow travelers to pass from one realm to another, carrying with them not passports, but patterns of consciousness, recognized and respected across domains. Or perhaps these realms remain isolated, each a universe unto itself, with interactions limited to the memories of those who choose to wander. The implications for human connection are profound, for unity could either flourish or fracture. Pause here and reflect quietly on the idea of nature itself. If virtual reality becomes real life, does nature vanish? Or is it reborn in forms unbound by physics? Imagine forests that sing softly as winds pass through their crystalline leaves, rivers that shimmer with colors never seen by human eyes, skies where constellations shift gently each night to tell new stories. Such landscapes may inspire awe, yet they also raise the tender question of whether simulated beauty can replace the humbling force of wildness, the reminder that we are not masters, but participants in a larger order. Without storms we cannot control. Without creatures that live beyond our understanding, do we lose the grounding humility that has shaped human wisdom. Perhaps we will carry memory of wild earth as a compass, creating simulations that honor it rather than erase it, blending reverence with invention. In this way, virtual life becomes not an escape from nature, but a continuation, a tribute to what once was, carried forward in endless variation. Let us also reflect on spirituality in this imagined world. Throughout human history, faith has often been rooted in mystery, in forces unseen and uncontrollable. What happens to faith when the mysteries of life are replaced by code, when gods are no longer needed to explain thunder or sunrise, because both can be programmed at will? Some may see this as the end of religion, a final triumph of human control. Others may find in it a new sacredness, not in surrender but in creation, in the awe of participating directly in shaping existence. Entire spiritual traditions may arise around the act of designing worlds, revering the creative impulse itself as divine. Pilgrimages could be made not to mountains or temples, but to realms designed by visionaries whose imagination touches the eternal. The sacred may not vanish, it may simply change form, reflecting our shifting understanding of reality. Now drift further into the future, where the line between memory and invention dissolves completely. Imagine revisiting a moment from childhood, not as a faded recollection, but as a vivid environment reconstructed in detail, every sound and color intact. In such worlds, the past becomes a place you can walk through, relive, and even reshape. But would altering memories diminish their meaning? If sorrow can be erased, do we lose the lessons it carried? If joy can be replayed endlessly, does it lose its brightness? Memory, like reality, gains weight from impermanence, and to live in a world where nothing fades may be to risk losing the very essence of nostalgia, that tender ache that gives depth to time. Consider too the possibility of shared memory, where communities build collective archives of experience, allowing individuals to step inside not only their own pasts, but the pasts of others. Such empathy could deepen connection, allowing us to feel what others felt, to walk in their stories. Yet it could also blur individuality, dissolving the line between self and other until identity becomes communal. In this gentle possibility, the boundaries of personhood soften, raising profound questions about what it means to be a unique self. As the reflection nears its conclusion, slow the cadence, soften the tone, and linger on the essence of the question. What if virtual reality became real life? Would humanity discover a new dawn of creativity, empathy, and wonder, living in worlds sculpted by the very dreams that once seemed unattainable? Or would we lose the grounding presence of imperfection, of challenge, of mortality that gives depth to existence? Perhaps the answer lies not in choosing one over the other, but in weaving them together with care, ensuring that the soil of earth and the code of imagination both remain honored. For in the end, reality is not only what surrounds us, but what we carry within us, the meaning we assign, the love we share, the questions we dare to ask. And whether life unfolds in forests of stone or in gardens of light, it is the courage to seek meaning that makes it real. So as the thought fades softly into silence, let the question remain gentle and open, a companion for your dreams and your waking hours alike, reminding you that sometimes the journey is not to find a final answer, but to learn to walk gracefully with the mystery itself.